Friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Ying Chen. I'm the director of the Journalism and Media Studies Center at the university. On behalf of JMSC, I'm pleased to welcome all of you to our lecture today. Indeed, I'm proud and honored to welcome you to the inaugural Li Shu Pei Leung Wei Ping Distinguished Lecture in Digital Media. With a generous donation of $2 million from Mr. and Mrs. Lee Kem-woon, the JMSC was able to create an endowment fund in support of an annual distinguished lecture in digital media. Each year, the JMSC will invite a visionary leader and thinker to address critical issues confronting the media. We live in a time of revolutionary technological changes, and revolutionary times call for new thinking and new paradigms. Hong Kong cannot do it alone. We are therefore calling for help. Today, we are honored to have Professor Lessig as our inaugural speaker. Professor Lessig teaches law at Stanford Law School. He is also the world's foremost authority on copyright and intellectual property issues. But most importantly, he is also the founder of Creative Commons, an innovative form of copyright licensing that's much needed in our digital age. I'm sure many of you have read about Creative Commons in the papers in recent days, and you will read more over this weekend as Creative Commons Hong Kong is being launched. His topic today is free culture and free society. Can the West love both? The lecture will be immediately followed by a discussion panel consisting of experts in the field of intellectual property law. We are delighted to have on the panel Professor Lawrence Lessig, Mr. Joey Ito, CEO of Creative Commons International, Professor Peter Yu, Kuan Family Chair in Intellectual Property Law at Drake University Law School. The panel will be moderated by my colleague Rebecca McKinnon, Public Lead of Creative Commons Hong Kong. Rebecca. The panel will take questions from the floor. Your participation in the discussion following the lecture will be most valuable. And before I invite Professor Lessig to come up, I'd like to introduce our president of the university. He's sitting here in the audience, but he said he's coming to listen. Professor Lep Chi Choi. Good to have you here. Now may I invite you all to join me in giving Professor Lessig a big hand of welcome.
So I want to start with three stories. These stories that come from 1906, 1928, and 1933. So here's the first story, which teaches us something about the way copyright in the current debate should be considered. So number one, in 1906, this man, John Philip Sousa, traveled to this place, the United States Congress, to talk about this technology, what he referred to as the, quote, talking machines. Sousa was not a fan of the talking machines. This is what he had to say. These talking machines are going to ruin the artistic development of music in this country. When I was a boy, in front of every house in the summer evenings, you would find the young people together singing songs of the day or the old songs. Today you hear these infernal machines going night and day. We will not have a vocal cord left, Sousa said. The vocal cords will be eliminated by a process of evolution, as was the tail of man that came from the ape. Now this is the picture I want you to focus on. The picture of the young people together singing the songs of the day or the old songs. This is a picture of culture. We could call it, using modern computer terminology, a kind of read-write culture. It's a culture where people participate in the creation and the recreation of their culture. In that sense, it's read-write. And Sousa's fear was that we would lose the capacity to engage in this read-write creativity because of these infernal machines. They would take it away, displace it, and in its place, We get the opposite of read-write creativity, what you could call, using modern computer terminology, a kind of read-only culture. A culture where creativity is consumed, but the consumer is not a creator. A culture which is top-down, where the vocal cords of the millions have been lost. A culture where the professional is the dominant form of cultural expression. And here was Sousa then, the professional, singing the virtues of the amateur. So that's story one. Here's story two. In 1928, in this place, Seattle, the Seattle police were dealing with a problem that was endemic across the United States, the problem of illegal alcohol. Illegal alcohol, which called bootlegging, was an increasing problem for the police, making it hard for them to do their job. Their job meaning the job of stopping the production and distribution of this illegal alcohol. And so the police took advantage of a new technology. Technology was the wiretap. And they wanted to use that technology to fight back against these criminals. In particular, this criminal, a man named Roy Olmsted. And he and 11 other figures from the Seattle area were prosecuted by the federal government using evidence gathered from the wiretap. And the case went to the Supreme Court, case of Olmsted versus the United States. And the Supreme Court had to address the question whether this wiretap was legal. Because the police, when they attached the wiretap to the telephones into the home of Roy Olmsted, had not secured a warrant, had not gotten any judicial review of this invasion at all. They simply attached a wire to the wire leaving Roy Olmsted's apartment. Well, the Supreme Court looked at the founding document, the Supreme Court, the Constitution, in particular, the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution. That's the Fourth Amendment. Actually, it looks a little bit more like that. And the important clause which it focused on was this clause, unreasonable searches and seizures. People have the right to be secure against unreasonable searches and seizures. And the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Chief Justice Taft, looked at that clause against the background of the history and said the intent of the Fourth Amendment was to protect against something called, quote, trespassing. But wiretapping, in this case at least, did not involve a trespass. They didn't have to enter the apartment to attach the wire. They connected the wire outside the apartment. So Taft said no trespass, no violation of the Fourth Amendment. But a dissent by Louis Brandeis invoked a very different way of reading and understanding and keeping alive the Constitution. Brandeis said there's a principle in the Fourth Amendment. The principle is that we protect against the invasion of private spaces. We protect privacy. But how you protect privacy will depend upon the technology of the time. He's quoting an earlier case, said time, works, changes. Meaning the objective of the Supreme Court should be to translate the protections of an older period into a newer time. An old protection rendered in a new context.